Hi everyone, welcome to Yahoo's Reset Your Mindset, a special dedicated to exploring mental health. Today we're focused on this idea of learning to breathe, especially during a year colored by chaos, stress, and so much loss and grief. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but it has been a topic that is more crucial than ever before amid the global coronavirus pandemic. 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness, ranging from generalized anxiety and depression to eating disorders, schizophrenia, and PTSD, just to name a few. COVID-19, as we all know, upended every aspect of our lives, abruptly transforming many of our homes into offices, schools, and everything in between. And we want to make sure to honor the more than 3 million lives that we have lost. And we're experiencing a movement of social justice and racial reckoning that's completely reignited demands of equity and representation. We hope our discussion today helps chip away at some of the stigma surrounding mental health care. Perhaps it can spark a long overdue conversation between you and a loved one, or serve as a gentle nudge for you to book that consultation with a therapist, or even, very simply, prompt you to take a deep breath. I have an all-star panel joining me over the next half hour: mental health advocate and Peloton instructor Kendall Toole, mental health therapist Faith Broussard-Cade, Dr. Nina Vasan, who's a psychiatrist and professor at Stanford, where she founded Brainstorm, the Stanford Lab for Mental Health Innovation, and Dan Harris, a journalist with ABC News and the author of 10% Happier. Dan, I want to start with you. I love sort of the subhead of your 2014 book, which is How I Tamed the Voice in My Head, Reduced Stress Without Losing My Edge, and Found Self-Help That Actually the True Story. We're in 2021. We've all been enduring this global pandemic. Tell me how your own mental health is doing right now, and how you feel like some of those tools you've been able to craft are being implemented today.
I agree with you. The subtitle is long, like the title of a Fiona Apple record. But to answer the question you actually asked me, how am I doing? I would say that, like everybody else, my mental health has really been challenged over the last 14, 15 months. I don't think we need to sugarcoat it. I think we could just clearly call it what it is, which is a dumpster fire. From the pandemic to the political polarization to the reckoning around race that we have appropriately been having over the last 14 months. It's all been extremely difficult. Working from home, parenting in the middle of a pandemic. I personally, notwithstanding more than a decade of meditation practice on my own, have seen levels of anxiety in my own mind that I haven't seen in a while. That said, it really throws into stark relief two things. One is that there are things we can do to take care of our own minds, to take responsibility for our own minds, including meditation, therapy, exercise, getting enough sleep, having access to nature. And the other thing that it throws into stark relief is we've just run a global unregulated experiment in what happens to people when you take away social connection. And what do we see? A spike in anxiety, depression, suicide, and addiction. And so if we learn anything, and I hope we do learn something from this pandemic, it's that perhaps the most important variable in your mental health is the quality of your relationship. And that deserves some attention.
Dr. Vasan, when you think about COVID adding that extra stressor, as Dan was alluding to, for marginalized and underrepresented communities, one of the stats is that while 50% of white adults with a mental health diagnosis have received treatment or counseling in the last year, only 34% of Latinx adults, 33% of Black folks, and 23% of Asian adults did. Does that still seem to hold true? Does the stigma still exist for people of color, or do you feel like that's eroding a little bit amid the pandemic?
Absolutely. Well, there are two elements of that, Melody, that I'd like to get at. And the first is that when we look at the pandemic, we saw about double the rates of depression, anxiety, substance use across the board. But specifically in minority communities, we saw these rates triple, if not even quadruple. So what that means, Melody, is that those who are already at risk, and minority Black and Brown communities, the rates of these issues were even more than it was for everyone else, right? So that we're starting at a level of things being much higher. Then secondly, it's that much harder to get help because of stigma, because of all of the kind of ingrown issues that we have in terms of systemic issues, including systemic racism, including access to care, that it's that much harder for people to get help. And that became so much harder with COVID because we know that COVID also disproportionately impacted communities of color. Now, I think that one thing I want to note is that one of the silver linings of the pandemic has been exactly what you're talking about how the conversation has started to change. And what this starts with like people like Michelle Obama talking about the depression that she experienced during the quarantine. Every one of us has had this experience now because of the pandemic of realizing how mental health shows up in our life and that some people had a harder time than they've ever had before. It's so important to get help. If we think of when someone first starts to experience mental illness symptoms to when they actually get help, the number is 11 years from having a symptom to getting professional help. We shouldn't have this world where you only seek help when you're in this like all-time low. It should be that healthcare is thought of as something where just as if you had like a little bit of a headache or a little bit of a cramping, that you're going and getting help. So that's why, to your question around, how conversations started to change, I think they absolutely have, especially in minority communities, but we can do more and we need to do more.
And Kendall, I want to throw it over to you. You have this amazing way of melding both mental health and your physical health as your career is a fitness instructor. Tell me more about your own journey with mental health and how this year has kind of provided some unprecedented challenges.
Yes, I'm very proud of the fact, actually, that I was diagnosed with OCD at right around the age of 11. And then come my college years, I was diagnosed with both anxiety and depression. It's something I wear proudly. It's something that I consider to be part of my power. And the beauty of having the platform that I have the ability to is being able to help try to take that stigma away from something that is a day-to-day part of my life and a part of so many millions of other individuals. This year has undeniably been a challenge. It's an understatement. We know what it's been for each of us as individuals and all of us as a community. What's the positive that I look through this experience was that it gave me the opportunity to consider the power of being alone, the power of stopping, the power of slowing down, of not necessarily having those social connections and having to do the internal work of where am I really? Where is my mental health? And let me accept those challenges as an opportunity to grow into something better. So by all means, it has been extremely challenging. It has pushed me. I miss hugs with my family so deeply, but I also feel it's given me more direction in the ability to want to not only destigmatize mental health, but also be a part of helping that system and that process for other individuals.
Yeah, and we'll dive deeper into part of that destigmatizing with Faith, who is an amazing counselor and one of my favorite accounts on Instagram. We'll also be speaking with actor, neuroscientist, and host of the series, Bialik's Breakdown. Mayim Bialik talks about her personal mental health journey and why access to mental health resources is so very important.
You might have noticed a little bit of a different lineup.
This is a new combination for us and a new time.
This week, we're going to be kicking off some changes in our programming.
We're in a critical period right now with record cases.
We want public health measures to be the gateway to safely and prudently opening up the economy again.
My advice to any entrepreneur out there is you got to pivot, man.
In this land of opportunity, anything is possible.
It all comes down to business economics and safety.
We can do this. I'm absolutely convinced.
We're here in Jackson Hole sitting down with Kansas City Fed President Esther George.
So I think the Federal Reserve's commitment has been to being as transparent as it can.
The low inflation is a real challenge for us as central bankers.
It shows that we're data dependent and it shows that we're sensitive to what's going on in the macroeconomic environment.
We certainly should be able to communicate what our policy is.
Your family will fall in love with The Croods: A New Age. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
This is amazing. What do we do? What do we say to each other? What's happening to our voices? Why are our voices getting so
Brand new. It's perfect family fun.
You see that wall? Yeah. You want to jump it? Yeah. Woo!
The Croods: A New Age.
Rent or own the latest movies with Verizon Fios On Demand.
I can save today, but you can save the world.
One day, you'll become all that you dream of and more. And everything will be different. This world is not ready for all that you will do.
The world needs you.
Wonder Woman 1984.
Rent or own the latest movies with Verizon Fios On Demand.
I'm Mayim Bialik, and welcome to my breakdown.
I've struggled with mental illness really my whole life and have started becoming more vocal about it. Quarantine, that my partner, Jonathan, and I realized so many people were experiencing mental health challenges because of the lockdown, because of this global pandemic, and many people didn't even know how to name it. You know, friends of mine who've never really experienced anxiety were like, I'm having trouble sleeping and my stomach really hurts. What's going on? It's like, oh, you're having anxiety. You didn't know what that is. And so many people don't have a basic vocabulary for what they're experiencing. You know, I'm trained as a neuroscientist, but really I'm a person who has lived and experienced a lot of things. But people ask questions about relationships, about eating, about parenting, about really every aspect of life that touches mental illness. And we answer them. So that's been a really nice way to get to know what people are going through and also to make the world of mental health smaller in a good way. It is so significant when I see public figures speaking up about struggling with mental health. It is especially significant when athletes speak up about their challenges, and really when anyone who has a facade that people think is unbreakable, when those people speak up, it's very, very important. And it does make a difference in breaking that stigma and allowing people to see that mental health, it does not discriminate. There's no amount of money that makes you immune.
That is so true. I want to bring in Faith to our conversation. Fleur de Lis Speaks is her account on Instagram, and she just posts daily reminders of mental health care, some practical words of encouragement. One of my favorite says, normalize caring for and supporting someone going through trauma, even if you haven't experienced it personally. As humans, we all need to feel seen, heard, loved, and cared for. Faith, I love everything that you do with this brand. Tell me about how kind of traction has picked up during the COVID pandemic. I'm curious if you've seen sort of an influx in people who are curious about getting these daily reminders.
Absolutely, Melody. I cannot even describe how much my follower count has grown just in the past year and few months since COVID started. We are all human. And like I said in that note, we all need to be seen. We need to feel heard. We need to feel loved and cared for. And so when we cannot have those organic interactions with people, when those are restricted or forbidden or illegal, as they have been in some cases throughout the COVID pandemic, people tend to reach out to find other ways that they can connect. So I kid you not, at any given point in my day, my DMs are well over 100. And those are only the message requests that I don't even get to. The people that I talk with normally on Instagram are constantly asking the questions, how do I do this? How do I set boundaries? How do I know if I'm experiencing anxiety? How do I talk to my child who doesn't have the vocabulary to explain how he or she is feeling? Most often I get questions from moms. I'm trying to be a mom. I'm trying to be a caretaker. I'm trying to parent. I'm trying to cook. I'm trying to clean. I'm trying to educate my family. How do I do that and still reserve some of me for myself? And it's extremely difficult. So I think there's a huge need for that kind of mental health support out there. And the more that we can do, the more that we can support each other, the better.
Yeah, I want to sort of drill down on talking about the youth, right, with teens and young adults who perhaps are feeling something that, you know, generationally speaking, none of us have, but they might be getting hit the hardest here when it comes to feeling that loneliness, the real pandemic at play. I want to get to Dr. Vasan. You work so well with technologists, with people in Silicon Valley. I know you've consulted with Pinterest, and of course you're at Stanford. Tell me about how technology and all of these new innovations are really helping us get connected, but perhaps there are some unforeseen dangers that may be attached here.
I think what's so important to note about social media is that it's not so much necessarily how much time we're spending on social media, but how we're using social media. We all have been in those situations where we've been on social media and we've seen that it can make you depressed, it can make you anxious, things like doom scrolling and all the negativity that's out there. So the reason I bring this up is that, kids are bombarded with so much information. And what we're seeing, Melody, is that it's really important for kids to be able to be mindful of how are they feeling when they're consuming this information. And I recommend oftentimes, like, can you put like some reminders for yourself or even alarms so that you're not spending too much time, or that you're able to intervene and make sure that when you're noticing that things are getting you down, that you can actually stop. And maybe that means unfollow some accounts that don't make you feel good, or when you find some accounts that do make you feel good, that add joy to your life, to be able to do more of that.
Right. Dan, with your 10% Happier podcast, which is so chock full of amazing insights and wisdom during your interviews, how have you thought about your own engagement with social media tools to promote that podcast, right? It feels like a very meta discussion here, but I'm curious your own experience with how technology has helped in addition to looking at your kids' usage.
I try not to use social media that much, if I'm honest. I've never really been into Facebook, so that was not much of a temptation. In particular, Instagram, I find made me, brim with FOMO and feelings of insufficiency. So I really don't look at it. I do use Twitter a little bit because I'll answer when people write to me with questions about meditation, but I don't use it that much. I really think that's a great answer here is, can you set some limits on the amount of social media you're using? Because in my experience, just my mental laboratory of one, social media does not equal happiness.
Yeah, Kendall, I mean, you must have so many thoughts about this because, of course, a lot of the Peloton following comes from Instagram, right? Where you think about how you can really promote yourself and your classes. Tell me how you've digested some of this during 2020 and for the years to come.
Surely, coming into Peloton as an instructor, my following was, let's just say, very insignificant to how it has grown now, especially during pandemic, the wonderful growth of our company. And it's fascinating how I also find myself, full transparency. I am very proud of the work that I do. I work very hard to train my body so I can train others. But the truth be told, it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison. I also grew up with social media. So I was on Facebook when I was in middle school and high school. I was on MySpace, oh boy, curating a top 8. That was the social construct that was challenging. And now even being on Instagram, I find the challenges come not only with the filtering, the ability to change your image, change your face, change your body to mask who you truly are, but also it comes with a lot of opinions that you might not agree with, opinions that can be very damaging to your mental health. So I do really think, especially for those young ones who are stepping into a space and growing up with this device and this tool, which is how it should be looked at. It is a tool for connection, but it is not where your relationship should be connected and where they should really exist. It's learning to set those boundaries. It's also learning to curate your feed like you want to curate the good thoughts in your mind. You have a right and the responsibility to put good in and to keep what isn't serving you out.
Yeah, everyone, please stick around. We also spoke with Nicole Curtis, the star of HGTV's Rehab Addict, who has just come back to the network after a 2-year break following some controversies that forced her to put her mental health first. We asked her how she keeps her mental wellness a top priority.
But for me, that's that point where I'm doing that maintenance on my body. Physical activity is so very important to our brain. You have to keep the blood flowing. You have to keep your endorphins going. And I think so many of us skip that, when we get on the hamster wheel of making sure that we're, doing all the things we're supposed to do. Well, the number one thing is that you have to take care of your mind, your body, and your soul. For me, that's channeling everything I have. I have to be outside. I have to be in the sunshine. I have to feel the weather outside. I run between depending on the week, 3 to 10 miles a week. And people ask me, where do you get this energy from? What are you doing? And it's taking care of my body. I couldn't do all of this when I was running nonstop and not taking care of my mental health. It was getting to a point where I looked at, I look back at some of these years on camera and, I have sunken in eyes and I look tired and I'm worn out and I'm screaming and I'm not in a good state of mind. So when I finally found, which shouldn't be a huge discovery for any of us, this is what we're supposed to be doing for our bodies. But now it seems like, oh my gosh, I've discovered like the fountain of youth. It was just like, taking care of my body and my health first before anything else.
Who are these vagabonds, and what have they done with my children?
I'm Peter Pan. And I'm Alice from Wonderland.
We can all use a little extra courage now and then.
It's not time to grow up.
Come away. Rated PG.
Rent or own the latest movies with Verizon Fios On Demand.
Moomoo lets you invest commission-free in stocks, ADRs, ETFs, and options right on your phone. You'll get in-depth customizable tools for advanced investors and more. Download the Moomoo app today at moomoo.com.
Live pictures from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Let's take a look at stocks.
We have gone positive on the indices.
Let's bring in the CEO of Moderna, Starbucks CEO,
UPS CEO,
Senator Sherrod Brown.
I always look forward to doing this interview.
You've probably seen the headlines before.
I want to get to some breaking news. Robinhood filed confidentially to go public.
Elon Musk tweeting Tesla is accepting Bitcoin.
We are not scared to take a stance for what we believe aligns with our values and our mission.
Keep watching what happens on Yahoo Finance Live.
Welcome to A Time for Change. We invite you to join us each week to assess how to create sustainable change.
If you believe the country is in the wrong direction, then your option is to vote for change.
It's really about raising awareness for how important it is to have diversity and to have different voices in the room.
We are literally rewriting the code.
We just have to make our case, keep pushing.
There's a lot of stories to be told.
One of the tangible ways that we can really up our mental health and mental fitness is through movement. I want to get to Dr. Vasan. Tell us about this direct correlation between how we can really get the sweat going, get our endorphins running, and actually feel better, that this is not just a superficial, perhaps narcissistic way to think about really upping our mental health.
Absolutely. Well, I actually say that the magical tool that we have in medicine is actually not a single medication, but is exercise. And it's because exercise releases dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, all of these neurotransmitters in our brain that we know help us feel better. And so just like an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication might, that is literally what exercise is doing for you. And what I think is so much better in a way is that if you take medications, which medications are so important and so helpful, but they also come with side effects. Exercise gives us this ability to find whatever it is that you love in the world, whether that's being on Peloton, whether that's going out for a walk, or joining a soccer team, and finding some version for you of getting things out there, right? And one of the things I noticed that a lot of people struggle with is, I feel so overwhelmed, there's never any time to exercise. What I think is really important is that, your body doesn't know if you're exercising for 50 minutes all at once or breaking that up into 10-minute segments. So if you feel overwhelmed by having to do it all at once, find 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there, and it all adds up, and exercise is the single best thing for your entire body, your entire brain. The science shows it over and over again.
So you're saying that I can split up one of Kendall's classes over the course of 24 hours. I'm totally into that digestible nugget. Faith, I want to get to you. I know you, in addition to having this Instagram account, you also had a baking blog and a plethora of different things. Tell me about the other sort of self-care, self-help tools that you've implemented in your own life.
Absolutely, Melody. My self-help, self-care journey started actually a few years ago, even though the majority of my career was as a professional school counselor, working with students and children in school settings. I was in a car accident a few years ago in January of 2018, and I sustained a concussion and a mild traumatic brain injury, which forced me out of my career and into medical leave, and then also into having to pivot in my career and figure out what it was that I was going to do. That's where those notes came out of. The disconnection from a job and a career that had formerly given me meaning and value was causing me to be in a dark place, literally to experience anxiety, depression, and overwhelm. And during that time, I realized if I want to be able to live my best life, if I want to be able to continue to share and help others, then I have got to prioritize my own mental health. And I've got to start taking that very seriously. At the time, my daughter was 3 years old. I have a husband. I had a home I was trying to take care of, and I was trying to do too much with too little capacity to handle it all. And that's when I actually started writing my notes. My notes have been an extremely beneficial source of self-care and self-help and self-love for me. It started out as a 15-day challenge where I would write myself a note and post it on Instagram. And then after 15 days, those notes started to really get traction and grow, and people started sharing their stories and appreciating the authenticity of my own struggle. I wasn't trying to sugarcoat it. I wasn't trying to make it look like everything was fine. I admitted, because of this brain injury, I suffer with insomnia. I can go 4 or 5 days straight without sleeping, which causes anxiety, depression, overwhelm, irritability. And so writing those notes were a form of self-care for me, as well as journaling, exercising, getting out, drinking the right amount of water that I'm supposed to be drinking, feeding my body the life-giving foods that I need to, and then also setting healthy boundaries and prioritizing the things that matter most and eliminating the things that don't matter have been hugely, hugely successful in helping me to maintain and manage my own mental health care.
Yeah. Dan, and quickly, as we think about meditation and breath work, tell me about maybe 1 or 2 practical things that our audience today can sort of take away from your own journey and the things that have helped you.
Well, just in the interest of time, I'll just give you one, which is meditation. The word meditation is a little bit like the word sports. It can describe a whole range of activities. But for me, when I talk about meditation, I'm talking about something that's called mindfulness meditation, which is derived from Buddhism, but secularized in that there is no metaphysical claims or religious lingo. And there are lots of ways to get started. I'm a huge fan of meditation apps. You should take everything I say here with a grain of salt because I'm a co-proprietor of a meditation app, which is called 10% Happier. But if you go in the App Store and search under meditation and do a taste test and see which one works for you, I think that's a great way to boot up a habit. And many of them have very short meditations and a great on-ramp to get started. Peloton has meditation too, I should say, in defense of Kendall here.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
And I know also Dr. Vasan actually is the Chief Medical Officer of Real. So we have a whole variety of apps that we can choose from here. I want to thank our panelists today. As we think about practical ways to implement some of these ideas, I actually have been using a pretty amazing immersive breathing tool. It's a moving lotus that my colleagues built here at Yahoo. Head over to Yahoo Life to check out the breathing exercise and a lot more mental health content. Thank you all for joining us today as we delved into so many aspects of mental health, ranging from societal and systemic issues to insights on meditation and mindfulness, to fitness and small daily steps we can take to strengthen our mental health. And the most heartfelt gratitude to our panelists who shared so vulnerably about their personal journeys. I know I need these kinds of conversations to feel rejuvenated and refreshed, and of course help reset my mindset. Most importantly, we hope this conversation served as a tiny reminder that you are not alone. Thanks for joining us.
Yahoo Plus Tech is an all-new way to set up, sync, support, and protect your eligible home tech, all under one simple plan. Cracks, spills, and mechanical failures? You're covered. For all your other tech issues, Assurian experts are here for you 24/7 to solve problems and help you do more with tech, like secure your home network, understand parental controls, or choose the right streaming device. We can even help you decide what to buy next based on your exact needs. With Yahoo Plus Tech, you can leave your tech troubles at the door.
Live pictures from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Let's take a look at stocks.
We have gone positive on the indices.
Let's bring in the CEO of Moderna, Starbucks CEO,
UPS CEO,
Senator Sherrod Brown.
I always look forward to doing this interview.
You've probably seen the headlines before.
I want to get to some breaking news. Robinhood filed confidentially to go public.
Elon Musk tweeting Tesla is accepting Bitcoin.
We are not scared to take a stance for what we believe aligns with our values and our mission.
Keep watching what happens on Yahoo Finance Live.